Let's talk right now about what's going on in the Middle East. Andrew Fox is defence expert and research fellow at the Henry Jackson Society and joins us now. Good morning to you, Andrew.
Hi, Julia.
Hello. Let's talk about where we are in the Middle East because, of course, after that barrage of missiles from Iran, 180 missiles on Israel, amazingly didn't see any Israeli deaths, but Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has vowed there will be retaliation. The question is, what kind of scale and where will it be aimed? Now, we know that the US President Joe Biden has said openly he does not want and would not support attacks on nuclear installations, also threats of attacks on oil installations and depots in Iran. What do you expect that Israeli retaliation to be, and what should we support or not?
Well, there's a menu of potential targets within Iran. So starting with regime sites themselves, looking at the leadership of Iran. There'll be infrastructure within Iran. That comes with a risk of alienating the Iranian populace, who are pretty discontented with their leadership at the moment. So they're probably people you want to keep on side. Striking oil facilities would certainly cause a spike in global oil prices, which would potentially make Israel pretty unpopular. The nuclear sites might spark some kind of retaliation. And then, of course, you've got the IRGC, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, which is Iran's expeditionary organisation responsible for training all their proxies around the region. So they would be fairly sensible targets as well. The options to strike, there's airstrikes, obviously. We might see some sort of shenanigans along the lines of the pager attack in Lebanon from Mossad. And I'm not even going to try and guess what that might look like.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's the naval option, using cruise missiles from naval vessels. So there's a sort of list of targets, a list of ways to strike them, and then there's always the unexpected.
Well, indeed, and they have managed the art of that in recent weeks, as you say, with the pager and walkie-talkie attacks, and taking out such senior figures, not just in Hezbollah and, of course, in Hamas, but in Iran as well. And that sort of is obviously what's going to be worrying, the Iranian mullahs, which is that we don't know how far Mossad's tentacles have reached into Iran, and indeed, obviously, into Lebanon as well, getting to the top ranks of the Hezbollah leaders, who've been such a key part of the Iranian regime's sort of plan to spread their Islamist extremism around the region. So they were very, very, very much on the back foot. Do you think the fact that they have now twice, both in April and this week, attacked with a huge barrage of missiles against Israel and basically caused next to no death or injury, that actually they are now proven to be a rather weaker power than many had suspected?
They're pretty much where I thought they would be. We're talking in the range of 680 missiles fired at Israel, and only a slack handful have actually hit any targets. The nature of this attack, of course, the missiles they used, rather than the drones and the slower moving missiles they used their sort of higher end kit.
Yeah.
So some did get through. The missile defences were activated for targets that would have hurt people and would have killed people. And I think the Israelis let through the ones that were going to land in completely benign areas.
Yeah.
But it's still not a particularly impressive show of force from Iran, and sits pretty much in line with what their capabilities are.
Indeed. Well, talking of capabilities, various defence experts, including former Defence Secretary Sir Ben Wallace, have spoken out about British armed forces not up to defending Israel from missile attacks, is their headline. Basically, RAF Typhoon jet fighters, which are thought to lack the weapons needed to repel an attack such as the Iranian missile attack on Tuesday. And it means that the UK was relegated to a supporting role only, assisting the US. Now, played a big role back in April, but basically Sir Ben Wallace is saying, look, we just don't have the fighting capability, the defensive capability. That's a bit of a worry, not just for our ability to defend an ally, but also our ability to defend ourselves, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think it's a bit ironic that Mr. Wallace is raising this concern, having just been Defence Secretary for however many years.
But he was raising concerns, even, we know, privately, but also sometimes publicly while he was Defence Secretary, about defence spending.
Oh, we'll give Ben some credit. But the key point here is just how run down our armed forces are.
Yeah.
Exercise Cerberus is going on in Germany at the moment, and we've got troops running around in vehicles that are older than their mothers. It's absolutely insane how little offensive armoured capability we actually have in the UK. And it's something that the new Defence Review absolutely needs to look at, take into consideration and fund properly.
Yeah, and again, we've also done that ridiculous situation where we've ended our last coal-fire power station and we've also ended our ability to make steel from scratch at Port Talbot this week. At a time when people are talking about the possibility of World War III. It is not only the threat from Russia to Ukraine and to Eastern Europe, but also our allies in the Middle East. It is just extraordinary that we have such an undermined capability, and yet we're considered one of the biggest fighting forces in the world.
Well, we've allowed this capability to make our own stuff to degrade. A lot of that was to do with EU membership. Under the rules for procurement, we had to outsource. Well, we had to certainly offer for tender around Europe all our contracts. So the new Ajax vehicle, the steel is made in Sweden. It's assembled in Spain. It's then taken to South Wales to have the poor quality Spanish assembly fixed. And only then can it roll towards the front lines. And that project is hugely over budget and overdue.
What a surprise.
So, you know, there is an opportunity certainly with the new rules that we're operating under post-Brexit, that we might be able to reclaim some of our own manufacturing capability, but that's not going to happen if we keep closing our plants.
Absolutely. Really good to talk to you there. Andrew Fox, defence expert, research fellow at the Henry Jackson Society. Thank you for that.